plain view. What else?
She tried to
Distort evidence.
Try it, yeah, I'm not going to do it on camera, but you remember what I did in class, and what it looked like, not what it looked like I was doing, but you get the idea. She was trying to destroy the evidence. The police have a right, or responsibility even, to stop the destruction of evidence, and like you said at the beginning, she voluntarily went down to the police station. Had she not voluntarily, and that's why they didn't have to read her rights, that's why they didn't need a warrant. She was destroying the evidence, it was in plain view, and she voluntarily went down to the police station. This stuck, meaning they were able to use it. Anything else with vomit? Is there a time when you can use vomit and it's legal? Go ahead.
To save someone's life?
Well, to save somebody's life, but there's something else.
Oh, when you're at a police station and you do happen to vomit there at their place.
Yeah.
Then it's their vomit.
It's like you're volunteering evidence. So you got to be careful about going to the bathroom. You got to be careful about vomiting. You got to be careful about spitting or some of these other things, because at that point the idea is that you vomited it. The police volunteered it. If the police got in trouble, they got in trouble by making you vomit. But if you vomit on your own, or you vomit unrelated to a search, at that point you're volunteering evidence, and yes, they can use it. Any other questions? And let me pull the terms back up. Actually, let's take a break from the terms. Let's look at the articles right quick. I know that we've dealt with several of these, but just to kind of run back through, and bear with me while this kind of heats up. We talked about the trailer article. We talked about the webcams. We talked about land grab. We got assault on powers, not the president's call, stop and frisk, and miscellaneous porn. Where do you want to go? I hear you. All the guys yell porn. And I think, no, Karen didn't yell porn. Okay, well, what were the porn articles that we talked about?
Changing yourself, like to make you look younger, even though you're a certain age.
What's that called? To make yourself look younger or older on the video?
Digitalize something.
Digital remastering. Are you allowed to digitally remaster yourself? How old are you, Zoe? 18. Zoe's 18. Zoe's a woman legally, yes? Could Zoe digitally remaster herself to look 14?
Yeah.
That sounded weird, Christian. I'm so sorry. That sounded weird. Go ahead. Go ahead, Amber.
No, but the only one that you can use is anime porn. That's the only one that you
Yeah, I hear you. Look at this. Pointing the pencil and everything.
No, exactly.
So I thought you said it was unconstitutional, not because she remastered herself, but because they were advertising it as child pornography, even though it wasn't.
On this, the trick is that if you could reasonably think that somebody was a child, then in fact that's going to get you in trouble. So you cannot digitally remaster yourself to look younger. By the same token, you can't digitally remaster yourself to look older. Now, to your point on this, Amber, when you were talking before, if you're looking at an anime child, and I want to be careful with this, but if you are, you wouldn't think that that was a real child because the child is a cartoon. But if Zoe digitally remastered herself so that she looked 14, well then at that point, guess what? You might look at that, you might fast forward through the opening credits or stop before the closing ones, and you might think that she was a real child, which at that point would be considered dangerous. If you wanted to be a MILF, I don't know why, but if you did, the idea again is there are no children that are in there, but the digitally remastering is the problem. You can use props, pigtails, the plaid skirt, I hear you, yeah, the schoolgirl uniform, these kinds of things, but all of that, but the idea or the bottom line is that digitally remastering is going a little bit too far. That's going a little bit too far. You remember anything else from the porn article?
Putting like naked pictures of your former ex.
What's that called? Putting naked pictures of your former ex. Revenge porn. And is revenge porn legal?
No.
Okay, maybe it should be.
I said it could be.
Oh, maybe it could be. Yeah, I hear it. You're really going into this. I can appreciate that. Anybody else? Karen, thoughts? This revenge porn stuff?
It's illegal, but it's hard to prove.
Why is it hard to prove?
Because you have to prove
Are you in danger?
In danger.
that you actually did
purposely
it.
did it.
Well, now you can prove that somebody did it because you're going to leave, your digital clues.
It's the intent behind it. Is that
If your intent, the trick on this is you can prove that somebody did it oftentimes, but it's the emotional distress, the duress that is actually the difficult piece, the emotional duress. And that's harder to do. And so just because you prove that somebody did it, it doesn't mean that necessarily you're going to get a conviction. If you remember, what else were they publishing in addition to the pictures? Address, phone number, information, name, place of employment, email, maybe nicknames. And the idea is that maybe with a little bit of luck or a little bit of determination, you would be able to find out who it was and you would be able to go find them. So that might stop somebody from being able to get jobs. That might endanger somebody. This little picture could conceivably turn into something that lasts and is a cloud over them for a long time. California was the state that attempted to make it a misdemeanor, and in fact, they did pass it, but the trick is that you've got to prove the intent behind it, because let's face it, some of us have friends who in fact love any pictures of themselves that are out there, and just because you post something that might be a little bit embarrassing doesn't necessarily mean that it causes them any grief or any heartbreak. However, there are others that would respond much more negatively to this. So you kind of get the idea. And in several of the classes, but I don't think all of them, I had mentioned the follow-up article where the guy got busted and got 20 years in jail. He got busted, if you remember, because he created a website that was called You Got Posted. And then he created a website where, in fact, people could clear the images from online of their nudity. Well, he would charge him, what, $300 or $400 to get the pictures removed. So basically, it was extorting the women that predominantly this happened to. And as such, he got 20 years, not because he posted the picture, but he got 20 years because of the extortion. And when we were talking about revenge porn, there was a big debate over if you voluntarily send out the picture, do you get what you deserve out of this? If you don't want your picture out there, then you should not actually have sent it. Or the other part of this, if you remember, was, okay, I sent a picture to somebody in confidence, and they're not supposed to share this. So that person should be held liable. That's what we were talking about. Stop and frisk. Anybody with any thoughts? Do y'all need to talk about stop and frisk?
No.
Make sure, and it's not very often, but this is the one article where they give some really, really good statistics. Make sure that you've got some statistics if you write about this. Not the president's call was a quickie. What's this talking about? What is the power that the president doesn't have that many people in fact think the president does have? To declare war. Congress has the power to declare war. Once war is declared, the president has the power to make war. In other words, run the show. And the idea is if you've got 535 voting members of Congress that ultimately a majority says yes, at that point they have made their decision. It would be better than if one person makes the call, but one person is best to run the mission once it starts, not the 535 voting members. And the other one down here, dealing with separation of powers, checks and balances. Do you remember what the assault on powers article was? This was a quickie. And I'll go ahead and go back to this because the quote in here is really good. It was talking about our government and its division of powers. And bear with me as I blow this up just a skosh. It says up here, the Constitution is based on the simple but elegant notion that checks and balances require that all important government actions require concurrence of at least two branches of government. Enacting a law, searching or arresting a person, imprisoning a person, signing a treaty or going to war, and it basically breaks down which two of the three branches need to work together. If only one branch is making decisions, that is much more, I don't want to say suspect, but it is much more flimsy. I think I mentioned to you Barack making an executive order allowing undocumented immigrants to remain in the country. He acted alone. That means that the next president that comes in could act alone and revoke that, which effectively means that it didn't change. However, if Congress and president pass something together, then you're going to need the next Congress and the next president to work together in order to stop it. It's much more lasting if two out of the three branches work together. Anybody with other questions? Because I know we're getting beyond the hour level right now. Anybody with other questions? Yes?
What format will the exam be like? Are we supposed to write an essay?
Yeah, there will be 2/3 of it that will be multiple choice. There will be 1/3 of it that will be short answers. The Monday, Wednesday class, you'll probably have about a 105-point exam because y'all only have 2. The other classes will probably have an 80 or 85-pointer because they actually have 3 exams. So that's what that will be.
It's multiple choice, 1/3.
And 1/3 will be short answers. And really explain your answers. If you only write 2 or 3 sentences for the short answers, odds are that's not enough. Yes?
Will it be like definition, or like you're gonna give us like a little case and then we got?
I'm going to give you a lot of little cases. So your names are going to be all throughout this thing, Christian. You're going to be breaking laws, killing people, cheating women, cheating men. You get the idea? Yes.
So for all these terms are for the short answer, pretty much.
A lot of these terms are actually going to be more for multiple choice.
Because some of them are just.
And some of them are straight definitions. If there are stories, the stories become much better for short answers. And you figure flag burning, I think several of the classes dealt with. Flag salute, I think pretty much all the classes dealt with. The Catholic confession, I think all the classes dealt with. The guy that confessed in prison and it got taped. Make sure that you're comfortable with these things. And then down here, just at the very end, we've talked about full faith and credit and commerce. The 9 o'clock class has tax and spend, but nobody else does. So do y'all have any questions about commerce, any of the examples, any of that?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On the criminal searches,
Yes.
what is that? Like, should we know the definition of that? Or?
It was examples under balancing were the criminal searches.
Okay.
So you're basically balancing the right to a fair trial versus the right to against unreasonable search and seizure. That's what that was. Yes.
How does it relate? The commerce power. How does it relate to civil rights?
Civil rights were the buses. You remember when we were talking about the commerce power, I had mentioned to you that the first area of civil rights was actually Greyhound and Trailways buses because they traveled interstate. So when people bought a ticket, the service that they were buying was transportation, and then the transportation carried them across state lines, which meant that they were involved in interstate commerce. So it wasn't about morality, it wasn't about equality, it was about commerce. That's how they began to desegregate. Go ahead.
Article 4, is that full faith?
Article 4 is full faith and credit. Article 6 is actually the one that's up there, though.
Okay, I don't know my
That was the supremacy clause. All, Constitution will be the supreme law of the land, and anything contrary to that will yield. The other part of Article 6 that dealt with the first scenario was
Presidential oath, right?
you take an oath to the Constitution. What do you not?
Religion.
You do not have to take an oath to a particular religion or swear on the Bible or that kind of a thing. A religious oath as a condition for office is actually prohibited in Article 6. I think, go ahead.
Do you have to learn the ideology terms?
What are the 4 ideology terms? Now, there were 2 classes that didn't get this. It was the 10 o'clock and the 12 o'clock. Yeah. The 9, the 11, and the 2, all of you had ideology, and I blocked this out. Do y'all remember what it meant to be liberal? Bedroom and wallet?
I don't know, I'm still waiting on those results.
Yeah. So 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 2 o'clock?
What it means to be liberal?
Yeah.
Doesn't it mean like they want it to be control of the bedroom and not control the wallet?
Control of, actually the exact opposite. If you're a liberal, you believe that government should regulate economic or wallet issues. You believe the government should stay out of bedroom or moral ones. If you're a conservative, you believe that the government should regulate moral issues or bedroom issues and stay out of the economic or wallet ones. If you are a libertarian, you believe that government should stay largely out of both economic and moral issues, meaning the government that governs best is the one that governs least. And then if you're a populist, you believe that government is there, in fact, to help people. So government should regulate moral and economic issues because it can make better decisions than people can make for themselves. And if you can remember issues that deal with economics, like the idea that everybody should be taxed the same percentage, or, this kind of a thing. The idea in terms of morals about gay marriage or abortion or prayer in schools and how they relate, these kinds of things would be helpful. Yes?
What was the example for
Flag
flag burning again?
burning was flag burning was an example of